So the problem with this kind of stuff is that when dictators do this kind of thing, any dictator, I don't care who it is, when they start to do these kinds of things, they're trying to appeal to your humanity, right? This because that's what it does, right? If you wanted to be a dictator and you wanted to get a bunch of people on your side, you get them emotional and you start appealing to their humanity. Now now we can do it the other way too. You can appeal to their anger as well, which is just as good because it's emotional, right? So when you appeal to people's humanity, so let's be fair here. Let's go with the narrative that Mao was a revolutionary. Okay. The problem is the same. The idea is, okay, well, we're going to get rid of money and we're going to have everything free to all, and all will join in and we will all own everything and everything will be really good. Well, here's the problem is that, that's when Polybius chimes in and says, but who will till the soil? And that's always the problem, right? To try and manage a large economy of people. What is an economy? An economy is just people engaged in commerce. And when you have hundreds of millions, even just tens of thousands, it becomes unworkable. There are too many variables in it. Okay, it's think of it like this. If you ever seen a pool table, and if you were to bounce a pool ball off of the bumpers enough times, eventually they will go into a pocket, right? If you bounce them in the corners like this, you can kind of predict where that ball is going to go. But after a little while, it will be completely unpredictable as to where that ball is going to go. Why? Because of minor imperfections in the felt, minor imperfections in the slate, minor imperfections in the ball itself. These minor imperfections add up after a while and become problematic. And that's the problem with centralized planning or centralized economies like that, where you have, to say nothing of these type of central economies and central planning, always have to have some kind of group that's above everybody else, who's going to be presumably going to be judicious and is going to be the great benevolent dictator who's going to make sure that everybody, chicken in every pot kind of thing. This just doesn't happen, because as soon as one person says, hey, I'm not happy with this, I don't want just a chicken in every pot, man, I want to kind of be left alone, I want to own property, I want to be my own thing. As soon as one person does that, that person becomes a problem, don't they? You have an entire trilogy of movies made in the 90s and early 2000s called The Matrix that explains that in no uncertain terms. I understand it's all about the cool effects and shit like that, but I mean, dude, if you actually understand what you're watching, that explains that exact problem, right? Because as soon as one person says, I don't want that, then it becomes you either have to participate or you have to go away from us somehow. Where are they to go? And that, of course, is the other issue. And of course, I don't want to get into the common law argument, but that's really where a lot of common law came from, is people who didn't want to participate in the wars, for example, and they would say, hey, listen, we're just going to move out here and be left alone. This is always a problem because it becomes very attractive to other people, and they say, yeah, I want that too, right? And then they start losing their market. So, and as we see this now, governments don't like to lose their markets, because then it starts affecting their division of labor, and that becomes, so it's like these things sound good, and it's why money was invented in the first place. All right, my channel is devoted to this, trying to explain this shit, and this is no question. This is the hardest thing I've ever tried to explain, because I have no bullshit, something like 80,000 hours into this. 80, not 8,000, 80,000 hours. I've been doing this a very, very, very long time, and it is one of the hardest things to try and explain why money even exists, and it exists largely because it allows for people to be lazy and stupid. True. And it also allows for people to be ambitious. It allows for both. That's why money exists in the abstract sense. It's why it's there in the first place. So to try and do the chicken in every pot thing, you will have a bunch of people who want to do something like that. And it works great until it doesn't, until they say, who's going to till the soil? And then it turns into, well, I don't want to do it. I got a degree in whatever, you know. So that's beneath me to go and work the soil. We need to find the other people to do that. That's where this thing always goes, because the so-called other people that are out there are just as thinking, just as feeling, just as intelligent in many cases as anybody else. I don't buy IQ as I'm pretty firm on this, and I've made that pretty clear in the past. I don't know that I accept IQ as in any kind of IQ scoring. I consider that to be basically junk science. So these are people that have the same kinds of thoughts. Now they may not be as interested in doing other things, and they may be perfectly happy tilling the soil, but what happens when they're treated like shit, like we're seeing right now? A bunch of people start saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Not because I have a problem with tilling the soil, okay, or doing whatever work, you know, handling sewage, whatever, okay, it doesn't make any difference. But because you're treating me like shit. And I'm not able to do any of the things that I want to do in my life, and you know, and it's especially annoying for those of us that we don't really have a lot of things that we really want to do. We just want to do a few things that we kind of like. They're not terribly expensive. They're not terribly exotic, but it becomes like, well, but if you go and do that, then we don't have anybody to do all of our work. Right? It's slavery. It's why everything eventually, centralized systems always end up devolving into slavery. They always do, every single time. And it doesn't make any difference what kind of centralized system. And this is why I get so upset with people who bring up isms. And this isn't you specifically. I'm just talking to everybody. When you bring up isms like, oh, this is the fault of communism, this is the fault of capitalism, and like, dude, you guys have to stop using these words. These are made up, invented bullshit words. Start describing what you're talking about, and you're going to find out that anything that's large and centralized eventually is going to, it doesn't make any difference whether it's private or public, it doesn't matter. Your problems are going to be the same. The suggestion that, well, no, but if we have the government do it, then we can vote better people. No, you can't. I would posit to you that if you just look around the world right now, no, you cannot vote better people, because better people don't really exist, because the word people is involved, and people are just as complex and fucked up as anything else. So and it's why I get frustrated with these words, and that's why I would just tell anybody, like, dude, be careful with this kind of stuff. When you say, well, we want this ism or that ism, why don't you just say, hey, I want a free market or don't want a free market? It's one or the other. Okay. So if you have a free market, then that means you're allowing people to do what they want to do. Okay. So just, in other words, rather than just, you know, try and use a bunch of words that start losing all their meaning, and I mean, because they do lose meaning after a while. Just as a side note, everything, if you start using these words just too much, it doesn't, and it's any word, right? It starts losing its meaning. You know, my bird, you know, you guys have seen me with my parrot. You know, she's obsessed with the word cracker. All the time. Cracker, cracker this, cracker that, cracker please, bitch cracker, cracker have you lost your mind, cracker check that hoe, cracker you bullshit and break yourself, cracker, can a cracker borrow a french fry? I mean, that's all she says. She talks about goddamn crackers all day long, and what she means is pistachio nut, but she calls them crackers for whatever reason. So, but she calls everybody cracker, and this is a problem. It loses all of its meaning. So be careful with some of these words when, you know, I don't mean you specifically. I'm just talking about everybody out there. When you're talking about we want this ism or that ism, or we don't want this ism or we don't want that ism, man, really stop and think about that stuff and say, well, hold on. What don't we want? And start thinking in terms of description, and you'll be a lot better off. Stop.